Welcome back to Visionality for Life. This is Lana Ray, and I'm giving you the next section of our discussion on the Act of 1871. Once again, you may not have interest in this. You may think it's a conspiracy theory. You may think it's something that can't be proven. I've been through all of that. I've been through that whole mental process on it, and come to the conclusion that it doesn't hurt to investigate and to research everything, because what I'm seeing in our nation and in our world today, I would have considered a conspiracy theory a year ago. So I throw all of this out the door, and I would suggest that those of you that are just listening to mainstream media, and like you've done for years, like I did, that you need to really stop and evaluate and pray about what truth really is. Do we even know what truth is? If you have somebody lying to you for years and years and years, and you have trusted them, it's not any different than relationships that we get into with people that we find out 3, 5, 10 years later that they were not who we thought they were. I mean, why do we think that everybody's just, whatever you see on TV is just the truth? We've got to research some things. And in that, you're going to have some research that you'll think, no, this just doesn't feel right to me. This is the discerning of spirit gift. This is your spirit inside you that God speaks through. We have to train it in our soul area, in our mind. We have to train ourselves to investigate, to research, and not just take everything at face value and do our own thing during the day. We need to become awake and become interested in our nation. So today, I'm going to respond to a comment. I'm going to respond to a comment from my first part 1 session, talking about when I was talking about how the District of Columbia, it appeared in the 41st Congress session that District of Columbia had been made a municipal corporation, and I had a comment that that is not a business. Well, I understand that is the that is what people are saying that come against this idea. But if you look up, I went to a website called the law.com dictionary, and so, go to different websites for interpretation of law. That's a part of research. And there's like 3 different definitions for a municipal corporation, and one is that it's a public corporation created by government for political purposes and having subordinate and local powers of legislation. Okay? And that's probably what this person was referring to. But there's another definition right after that that says an incorporation of persons, inhabitants, or particular places, or connected with a particular district, enabling them to conduct local civil government. And then there's a third one that I found really interesting, because it refers to English law in England. London. A body of person in a town having the powers of acting as one person, of holding and transmitting property, and of regulating the government of the town. Such corporations existed in the chief town of England deriving their authority from incorporating charters granted by the crown, the royal family. So I'm just saying it's possible. I still stand on this is a possible situation that could have happened, and it could have maintained through corruption that we saw in I think it's my part 2 video where I talked about Ulysses S. Grant being the president during this time of 1871 and of our history, that the government, all levels, were corrupt. And this is what we're seeing today. See, they've been through it before. There's history about it. So it shouldn't be, for those of you that are history buffs, you probably already are awake, because you see that it's just the way life how it goes over time. That there is evil in the world, and how do you expect Satan to manifest? He's on the earth, he's still the prince of the air, he's been defeated by Christ Jesus, but he's still operating. And we just think sometimes that it's just, there's people just doing, wrong things, or having an affair, or they're having, but we're talking deep, dark stuff, deep, evil stuff with our kids all around the world, the sex trafficking, the child pornography, the child sacrificing to pagan idols that Paul saw back in his day. It's happening today. It's happening today all over the world. And deep down, everything that we're seeing will end up tying back to that, because that's kind of the ultimate. Satan wants to kill us. Okay? Haven't we always known that in our Bible studies, that Satan hates all people? He hates all people because God loves us, because God created us in his image and according to his purpose. And Satan wants to destroy us any way he can, and that can be mentally, physically, through all kinds of horrible satanic worship. Let's not forget that. Anything is possible, and it's possible today. And we're going to be looking in the next video. I'm going to do one section on President John F. Kennedy. He got it. He knew. Some of these presidents, I don't know how much they knew going into the presidency, but once they got in there, they found out who was running the show. So he gives a 3-minute, his last message was a 3-minute message, and it's packed full of meaning that he was trying to get across to the American people. And so we're going to look at that briefly in the next segment. But I want to just show you a little bit of how, if this is what happened, and they set up District of Columbia as its own corporation to operate in business, and because the debt was so bad during the Civil War after that the United States was in so much debt that England offered to give the money with a contract. And that contract is that we will pay for that over time, and that all of the assets of the United States from the federal government actually belong to them, and we are paying. We pay for that in several ways, but through this bank situation, we know that District of Columbia In 1870, they created in April the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and so that was right off the bat put into place. And then in 1908, the FBI was created. Okay, so this would have been after the fact. They created FBI and put it under the DOJ. Also, right before that, they started the United States Census Bureau in 1902, and this is where they started registering births. So there would have been birth certificates. And I welcome corrections. You're not going to hurt my feelings, because I'm not intending to know everything about this. I'm researching as well. Some of it is going to be my thoughts and my takes on it, just like everyone can do, because we live in a republic, a constitutional republic, where all people have the freedom of speech, and we can all give our ideas and our takes on issues. That's just the way it is. That's how we should look. And we can do it in a diplomatic way. We can do it with love and with truth and peace. And that's what we need to be practicing. Now, also, in 1913, the federal government started what's called the central bank, which is the Federal Reserve. And there's a lot to say about that. So that could be in another time. But that started up to be a national central bank for the United States through the federal government. Is actually in 1862, President Lincoln signed into law to help pay for the Civil War. He set up the first income tax. And this was done before we actually called it the IRS and made it an official department. But the concept of income tax started in 1862 when they started wanted the people to help pay for the Civil War debt, and that got revoked over time. It's interesting. I don't want to get into too much about it. In 1867, the public, the people, we the people, opposed to that income tax, and Congress cut the tax rate completely out. From 1868 to 1913, 90% of that tax came from taxing on liquor, beer, wine, and tobacco. So, and then there was more things happened, and then in 1913, we had the first 1040 form tax report. So that was in 1913. But at the time that the taxes started, we would have been given a Social Security number. And that's when it started for us. Let me see if I can find the date on that on my handy little timeline that I'm building here. 1935, Social Security Act was passed in August 14th. This set up a trust with Social Security Administration, and they started the Social Security cards with your number. And that number, as we know, stays with us forever, and we pay a huge amount of state, federal tax, plus Medicare, Social Security. All of these things come out of our payroll check as working people. We, the people who own the nation, are down here at the bottom, working, having, in many cases, struggling, working 2 jobs as the economy up here, where they all decide the economy, and the printing of the money, and when wars come and wars go, war always creates debt. And that is a pretty standard concept that I've read in every place I go. War equals debt. And the bureaucracy that we have in the federal government from forever we've been in wars at different times. I'm not saying that those wars, I'm not saying either way. I'm sure there was some of those wars that needed to happen for us to remain we the people of a nation, of a constitutional republic, but I am saying it's highly probable and highly possible, because of the corruption and wanting to control and money and all the things that Satan wants to deceive everybody with, power, control, and money, and satisfying all physical and mental desires, however that manifests, drives people to do things that in many cases are not good for other people, for humanity. So here you have it on this one. It's just I'm very intro minded. Some of you may know a whole lot more about this than me. So if you have comments, go ahead and put them out there. Just try to be nice to me, because I'm not doing this I'm not trying to be pushy. I'm trying to give information, and also with a little bit of a warning about being asleep and just doing your daily hobbies and ignoring what's going on in the world and what's going on, and just acting like, oh, that's just that, I can't do anything about it. Yes, we can do something about it. We can get out in our communities. We can take time and pray and decide what those things are for each person. I'm doing that. I'm trying to decide where in my local places do I want to serve, where in my state, where in the nation, how do I want to spend the rest of my years to make a difference, because I believe that I'm an American disciple, just like you are. And this is the calling of God on our life, that we are a disciple of Christ, but we're to operate in the world, in America, in our nation, not operating in a church building. You can go to a church building and worship and meet people, but do not stay there. Do not stay in the church 7 days a week or 3 days a week or whatever and think that that is everything. Because I'm telling you, the Bible doesn't teach that. The Bible doesn't teach that type of a structure in the church body. And for more of this, you'll just have to go check out Fully Convinced Ministries, which is my ministry website, because this session I'm trying to keep strictly for Visionality for Life, which is more of a call to action for the disciple. It's more of the activation into the world that Jesus talks about. So I will see you in the next video, where I'm going to talk a little bit about President John F. K. And it'll be interesting. So see you then.